It is my honor to be here to moderate this discussion of LGBTQ nonprofit folks who are doing some amazing work, and we are building coalitions in this time of extreme duress and attack, and I think it's a really timely thing that we all come together and not work in bunkers, and so this discussion is part of that effort. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and have everybody, I do my introduction. 61-year-old, fourth generation gay dude. He, him. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and have everyone introduce themselves and their organization and maybe what you're hoping for today, for this conversation.
You're starting.
I think we'll go with the youngest person first on the panel. So, I don't think it's me.
I don't think that's me. That's Win.
I think it's Win.
By a little bit.
What? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Win.
Hi everybody, my name is Uyen. I go by she, they pronouns. I'm with Rainbow Orange County, and I am really just looking to have a nice conversation. No perfection, just chatting.
Oh, are we going by age, really? We're not doing that.
Wow.
It doesn't have to.
Wow.
My name is Hyun Win. I was with Rainbow of Orange County, but currently I am an independent consultant, and also I'm currently running for local elected office in Garden Grove.
Okay. My name is Jeffrey Deguia, he, him, his. I am representing Asian Americans in Southern California, or AJ SoCal, and also the AAPI Queer Joy Coaltion, which is a part of AJ SoCal. Happy to be here, happy to share some thoughts, speak to people I love. Yeah.
I guess I'm last.
The youngest.
Oh, in spirit. Hi everyone, I'm Viki Goto, she, her, hers. I am the board co-president of PFLAG San Valley API chapter. And I'm just so happy to be in this space in community with all of you. So I'm looking forward to all of our discussions.
Thank you all so much for being here. We're just going to go ahead and start with a general question, and folks can jump in or pass the mic. What is sustaining your organization, and why is it important to have an AA, NHPI, LGBTQ organization, especially this time right now?
Just go first right now. So we are a Viet and queer organization in interesting Orange County. And what's sustaining our organization, I think there's twofold to answer this question. Like literally sustaining is funding, right? And I think because we are an API and a queer org, a lot of other opportunities and fundings, they look at us as kind of a token, like, oh, you are the queer org in our API group, or you're the API org in our queer group, right? And so what's sustaining our organization really is the fact that we fill in a lot of needs that people don't often see and maybe think that should have a seat at the table normally. And I think that is a sad kind of reality to be like that's sustaining us, like in this landscape. But I think like what's more exciting that's sustaining us that I like to think about is the possibility. I think that being queer and API is actually really beautiful because we don't have to look at ourselves in silos. We can't look at ourselves in silos. We're intersectional beings. And so when we think about solutions, when we think about ways we approach each other and just issues, we don't take compromises, right? So we think about these ways, these new ways of doing things, maybe tweaking things a little bit differently, so that like we can have our dreams, really. And so I think that's what's sustaining me, even when in this landscape people are asking us, in order to survive as a nonprofit, you have to fit this kind of criteria or that kind of criteria to like get funded. But in the back of my mind, understanding that what really is sustaining me in this work is seeing community members like light up their their eyes light up when they're like, oh, actually, what if we do this and this, and that would be so fun. And that's the things that I think sustains me in this landscape that asks me to shrink in order to grow, which is really weird.
I can kind of piggyback off a little bit of what Lynn said. I think, so AJ SoCal isn't historically a queer trans API servant organization, but back in the day when API Equality LA Namumbo was our fiscal project, we would do a lot of the LGBTQ plus work through them. We would support them with like comms needs and infrastructure and those types of items. Unfortunately, we couldn't touch them the way we were in the past in 2019. But I think in 2020, I think during the pandemic, the worst of it, we all saw that the folks at the margins were living in these like very like do or die survival types of realities. And I think it was really clear with a lot of the queer and trans youth, especially, or queer trans folks in the APAC community, that they're part of this kind of just struggling big time. Lack of healthcare, lack of just like social spaces was really damaging their mental health. And I think our CEO at the time was speaking, we have to ensure that our API movement includes LGBTQ plus folks too. And for me, as an out Filipino, at the organization, I like Lynn said, I've never separated my queerness from my Filipiness, from Asian Americanness. It's always together. And I think it just felt so good to know that we're moving in that direction. Kind of bring it back some more, I think my colleague Marilise realized that when she was doing like SOGI, which is sexual orientation, gender identity work around the reproductive health, she saw that, and then there's a lot of crossover in that space with LGBT organizations. She saw that there was like no API folks in any of the organizations. That like VROC was there, but like very like when mentioned like tokenized, very like we checked out like this like diversity box, including the API community, and that's how we started the AAPI Queer Joy Coaltion, which is to ensure that there are QTOPI voices in state advocacy, because in order for like elected officials in California to fight for our communities, they have to see us, they have to hear our voices. And I think, we don't choose to be one or the other, queer or API or trans, queer, trans or API. We're always choosing everything about ourselves. And I think that, kind of just to wrap, I just think, the margins are super, super evident and highlighted right now in such a scary way. We see who's being attacked at the federal level, who's getting like hate crimed and targeted by other hateful folks. And if we don't include trans and queer folks in our movements, then they're not complete. And we have to ensure that we're doing those things together so that we fight for everybody in the community, not just for parts of our community. So I'll say that.
I'll say what sustains us operationally is really the generosity of spirit of our parents, our families, and our LGBTQ plus members who are so open and vulnerable with their deeply personal stories that they share with other API, AA and HPI parents who may be on the beginning of their journeys. And I'll back up a little. PFLAG SGV API is an all-volunteer, board-led organization, and our activities kind of fall into 3 categories. We have a monthly support group meeting in person in San Gabriel Valley, and we also conduct outreach and education, mostly focusing on the AA and HPI community. And then we also participate in advocacy to uplift the lives of LGBTQ plus folks. And so it's so important for us to have AA and HPI spaces because, we recognize the intersectionality of cultural and LGBTQ plus identities, as was mentioned by everyone on the panel. Our members tell us all the time that they feel much more comfortable sharing, their personal journeys in a room where folks have an inherent understanding of the context of the cultural norms and the way they are brought up. It's just understood. And so for us to be able to provide a warm and welcoming environment for folks, no matter where they are along their journey, it's really important to us. And I'll just say, in terms of financial sustainability, that is a big challenge for us as a all-volunteer board. Our capacity for fundraising is very limited. We're a membership organization, so there's a nominal annual fee that we share with our national organization, but membership isn't required at all to participate in our support group or any of our activities. And so we kind of rely a lot on passive fundraising, and we have tried to apply for a few grants in the last couple of years, but we're not selected. And I think that's a function of what was mentioned here, that so many nonprofits have lost significant funding in the last couple of years as this administration has taken away support for really critical services. And so that is one of the focus areas for us this year, is to really diversify our funding and to focus on that, because we want to do more outreach activities and to go to conferences and collaborate with folks, but that requires resources.
So although I am not actively involved as a staff member or board member of VROC, I think in terms of answering that question, I think about beyond the funding and what folks have shared, just thinking about how VROC started. I was one of the co-founder, and pretty early on, we realized that in order for us to sustain sort of the work that we were doing, because it's very taxing, right? It's very emotionally draining. It's very vulnerable work when you do the work within your community where you grow up, right? Where you have your moms, your parents, friends telling, asking my parents, is that your son who's causing issues in the community, etc. So, very early on in VROC, we had multi-generational folks who were organizing back in 2013, 2014, and we knew very early on that to sustain the work, we had to build relationships, right, and center our work around collective joy. And so that was through a lot of, every meeting we had, we would make food, right? We had parents who would make food for us, teach us how to make certain food. And we were serious about things, but we were just also not serious about things. We had fun, we enjoyed each other's presence, and to foster that sense of belonging and community and family. So I think that's part of what's sustained, was helpful for us to sustain. And I know Uyen has continued to center those values, and she'll probably share that a little bit later. If not, I will share.
Tee that up nicely, thank you. What I'm hearing is the culture matters, right? And we do things a little bit differently, and I think that it resonates for people when they feel reflected, right? So our organizations are providing these individual services, but together as a coalition, I think we are so powerful, right?
That was so therapist of you.
You know what? I'm going to sit down.
So join the club.
No, I'm part of this. Okay, next question. Kind of feeds into Hieu, I think, what you're kind of doing. What does advocacy look? How does advocacy look different today in the political landscape, and specifically why now for public office?
Oh, you're gonna pull me into that, okay? How does advocacy look differently today? I think from the context of where I'm at, so I left VROC in 2020 because I took a county job, a government job, working on health equity in Orange County Health Agency. And so I sat down consciously because I didn't want there to be perceived conflict of interest. And newer generation of leaders, would take VROC to a new height. And I think Uyen has done that magnificently. So I think it was the right time. And in the context when I was at the county, that was when health equity, DEI was very sexy, right? Everybody and their mother was talking about it, right? You couldn't go to a meeting without somebody mentioning the word. Couldn't go to a meeting where a white person would talk about that very proudly as if they were supportive of that for so long, right? And then at the end of sort of my tenure in 2024, mid-2024, I started seeing things changing, right? I was at the national CDC sort of conferences around health equity, and I started picking up a lot of cues about, well, we can do equity work, but we don't need to say the word equity, right? We can all be about inclusion, but we don't need to say DEI, right? And I was like, okay, this is feeling like don't ask, don't tell, right? I'm starting to feel that sense, and so, and then the election happened, and everything changed after that, and so I feel like we're in this very, very unique space where we want to advocate on our values and whatnot, but we sometimes can't say those words, right? Can't be open in certain spaces, and because I'm an independent consultant now, I can say whatever the heck I want, and so I haven't felt that myself personally, but I feel that in a lot of my nonprofit friends and a lot of grassroots organization, and so I don't envy them in the space right now in terms of advocacy and standing with your values and standing with what's right. But yeah, that's how I would take that. And what was your thing about me running for office?
You answered it.
I answered it. Yeah, I think for me it's like, the reason why I'm thinking about running for office is, I've never wanted to be a politician, even when we were forming VROC and we were seen as one of the first progressive Vietnamese American organization. Folks did ask me to run for office, and that was never part of my plan. Like, no, I don't care for politics, and never desired to. And over the last sort of year and a half, I've been sitting and thinking about what is my role now and how do I play my part in making the world a better place. Largely because, my husband and I started out, we're fostering a kid and we're now adopted him. And I couldn't be out in the protests, I couldn't be out there on the streets, and I was just feeling very helpless. I think I fell into a depression. And I'm not a helpless person. I like to be very active and I like to engage and take action. And so that was very hard for me to sit on the sidelines. And I look at the kind of makeup of the city council in Garden Grove, and the guy in my seat in District 4, him and his wife was the one that were against VROC marching in the Lunar New Year in 2014. His wife was the one that said, LGBTQ people didn't exist in the Vietnamese culture. This was a Western disease, and this was because of MTV, right? For those of you who don't know what MTV is really cool. But so I look at the makeup. His wife was on the seat at the time. Joe Dovin is now in the seat, and he is a MAGA Democrat, right? And they exist in Orange County, y'all. He is on paper he's a Democrat, but he's anti-immigrant, he's pro-ICE, he's anti-LGBTQ, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think with my lived experiences, my professional experiences, I feel like I can do good, right? But I'm also very practical. I'm like, if they don't have a majority, I'm not gonna sacrifice myself and my family for this craziness in politics. But he's the swing vote, right? He right now is the swing. We have a majority on paper, but this guy swings the other way all the time, right? So I'm very practical, and I think that's where my advocacy is right now, and seeing how I can do my part. Sorry, long-winded answer.
Vote for Hieu. Oh wait, I'm C3.
Yes.
C3, you can't vote for me, you can donate to me.
Yes. I commend you so much for running for office because we need more people to do that.
Yeah.
We need more AA and HPI people to do that, and I know it's so daunting. So for you to take that on is really amazing for the community. And I would say, like, the vitriol of the attacks against LGBTQ plus folks, and particularly our trans family, in some ways have galvanized people into action. I think we've seen members come to our meetings who haven't been before or haven't been involved in for years, who've told us, the community needs us now and we're gonna be here. But I think it also has really generated a lot of fear and self-erasure even of people wanting to just be invisible and not set themselves up to be attacked. So I think this time really calls for a broad coalition of folks to stand up together and, all marginalized communities, whether you're representing undocumented immigrants or transgender folks or people with disabilities, we're all going to have to collectively organize together to make those numbers really matter, because the strategy is really to divide and conquer and also to attack a small group of people who don't have the power to fight back by themselves. So I think real active allyship is crucial in these times.
Yeah, I'll say it's, I think right now it almost kind of feels like the 90s AIDS epidemic in a sense. It's very like, I know that might be a stretch to compare it that way, but I just feel like folks know it's like do or die. I think with knowing the suicide rates of trans youth and trans folks, the violence that black trans women face and trans women of color face, I think we have to do something. You can't just like say you're gonna celebrate Pride and not also celebrate and then be in the streets or be engaged with some organization at some kind of level. And I think for me, in my capacity at AJ SoCal, I think I personally have always admired like organizations like VROC who do the community organizing, because I'm just like, I wish we did that at AJ SoCal. But for me, it's like I just try to gather, I do grass tops organizing, which is organizing organizations, and then kind of mobilizing our power together at like the officials' offices. So I do think that is a way we can do it at the state level. But when I show up for press conferences or actions for like a Transatlantic Coalition or for VROC in Orange County, it just has to all come together. I think that there's ways to plug in at the really small level, locally, statewide level, in the streets, causing some trouble. I think it's like, I don't know, we live in this country where the First Amendment is so close to being stripped away from us. So we gotta like use it. We gotta try and like speak up. I think it's so scary to ask yourself to like have the courage to do these things because of some type of fear around getting like outed or like getting some type of, what's I'm looking for, like some type of like consequences for that. But it's like, can you live with knowing that you want to say something and not say something? I think for me that's kind of, it's like if I feel my gut and I'm missing out on an opportunity, then that's what I know that I'm regretting my actions or lack of actions. So it's like I learn from Wayne so much in this space, and I get to learn from my partners who do this kind of really local organizing of how to make my organization be better too, and how to bring those messages of real liberation to elected officials and their staffers across the state. They help me imagine more that I can do in my organization, so I get to help the elected officials imagine more than what they can do in their roles too. So it's all very connected, and I'm very lucky to learn all the time. And I think this young version of myself who saw himself as an activist is just getting sharper and sharper because of folks like Viki, Hieu, and Uyen and Eric, and yeah. I don't know, I just can't imagine you living this life right now in 2026 and not saying shit. I'm sorry. I can't imagine that. It's just, y'all gotta like wake up, and it's kind of do or die, and I don't want to see trans folks disappear. They've always been here, they'll continue to be here, but the folks that have the privilege, we gotta fight for our trans folks. We have to.
Plus one to everyone. What everyone said, I mean, it feels like the stakes have never been higher, and they always get higher every day for some reason. But I feel like as a society and a community, we've never been lower in a weird way to say. I mean, I think like just sharing that, like, we've never processed the pandemic, did we? Right? We went through a pandemic. We went through a period of what Hugh said, of everyone would be like, yay, DEI, woo, we're together. And then like a huge cliff where we're like, oh, actually everyone else who was like of color, go back in the closet, right? And as a society, right? And so even just living through that, we've never really just taken some time to process like, how are we holding up as a community? And so when I think about how advocacy looks different, you know, I was lucky to be around VROC when I was not hired, when I was just a volunteer, and really being able to relish in the relationships, hang out at Hugh's house, eating Hugh's food, pretend Hugh's house is my house, right? And just being part of that relationship that's part of the community, being really strong in that, being able to joke. And when 2020 hit, and I'm in this role with VROC, seeing people really just unable to process all these things because we don't have that time and space, I think it makes advocacy look a lot different today, because we know the work is important. The stakes have never been higher, right? But even, in my belief, even more important is how we do the work. The issues are important. The way we do our campaigns is important, right? But how we treat each other and how we're thinking about sustainability is even more important, because as we've seen throughout the years, we can push, stay up all night, work, get a win, and then if everyone's tired, burnt out, or you know, like is not there with us anymore, then we're starting again at square one. And right now it feels like square -5 in some ways, right? And so I think like advocacy looks different now is we're seeing also with VROC, we work with young folks. We see with TikTok and the internet, the kids know everything except for how to make connections emotionally.
Yes.
Because through a society, we've just kind of been numb and we've never stopped being numb.
Yeah.
And so being able to make connections, being able to make healthy boundaries, being able to understand how these intellectual things manifest in our bodies and how it can be complicated if we are fighting and protesting and going out to rallies, but we're going home and we're being back in the closet because we can't talk to our families or we're too scared to. It's really jarring. And so for me, what advocacy looks like right now is really just being able to take care of each other and do a little bit of healing, of understanding that sometimes you don't need to be in the streets, right? You can, you know, have to get your posters and all of that stuff, but really thinking about like what will sustain you beyond this year and how will you sustain other folks in this work, right? And really being able to sit with conflict and be able to sit with like, what will I do during this part and how will I help myself go through it and how will I help other folks too. We all have a role in the movement. I think folks really know that. There can be folks on the front line, people who are allies, stepping up, being shields, people doing legislative things, right? Not everyone has to shoulder everything, but I think because everything feels so urgent, the stakes are so high, you know, it is feeling like do or die, that it feels like I have to put everything in, but then there's nothing left for me at the end of the day. And I think that's something that we have to really realize that's not what advocacy looks like anymore. That actually isn't really sustainable. And we have to teach our young folks that too. When they're so impassioned, they see their friends, we're like, hey, that's love it, love the passion, love the enthusiasm, but did you like eat today? Did you like, do you have savings? Do you know financial literacy? All of that stuff, right? We're having to make sure that the young folks know that, because that's gonna help them carry through as this world is, you never know what's gonna happen in the next month. So advocacy looks a little bit, I think in my head, a little bit on the softer end. We need to kind of be able to learn how to connect and talk to people a little bit more. But we haven't really been able to do that for a really long time.
Just real fast, I think when saying like to the young people, I'm hearing you say it to me. Because I think like,
Oh my gosh.
I used to like know my levels with like how I engage, how I take a step back, and how I invest in all that. But I think, you know, I really holding this LGBTQ portfolio at AAPI SoCal really closely. And I've been so happy to have partners and coffees and events to go to and work to get done. But I am like, my partner knows, I'm like, I'm tired. And like, I can't do these things. And he's like, I'll just, you know, and I just think like, he's reminding me how to take care of myself. The partners definitely do. Gosh, it's hard because I think, again, like I'm a team of one at the organization. And I think I want to do good by the partners. I want to do good by like the community. And I feel this pressure. But I will say like being community these last 3 months, oh my gosh, 3 months, 4 months, has been like understanding what joy and community care means again. So as I find my footing, I'm just like thankful to y'all. So much gratitude for just reminding me that like I am a part of this and that y'all have my back. And I have good people around me who can look out for me too.
Thank you. You know, what's sticking out of this part of the conversation is that things are happening so fast that it's just really a struggle to stay present and just do the work that's in front of us, but we don't see the big picture, and we don't see the big picture from the past as well, because our communities have been through many things and have survived, and paradoxically, actually some amazing things came out of it. And you know, Jeffrey, you mentioned HIV/AIDS, right? That was like collectively blowing down the closet door, and people had to come out, because if you didn't, you weren't going to be cared for. You were being completely erased, right? And so that led the stage to a modern gay movement, a lot of LGBTQ movement, right? And so our hope, my hope, is that our collective hope is that there's a paradoxical meaning to the struggle that we face right now, right? Viki, this question is for you.
Oh boy.
Can you discuss the importance of PFLAG in making spaces for parents of LGBTQ plus children, and keeping in mind that we have a wonderful, beautiful parent convening going on upstairs right now?
Yay! Well, I will say PFLAG parents are really the cornerstone of what we do, and we wouldn't be able to do any of our work without them. You know, when an API kid first comes out, their parents, shares their identity with their parents. The parents are often very fearful, confused, upset, and they try to handle everything by themselves. They don't know who they can trust, and they don't want to be judged by other family members or, you know, the community. And so when they eventually make it to our support meeting and see, you know, that there is a community there for them, they often just break down in just tears of relief and spend most of the meeting crying, because, you know, it's so important to know that there are parents who've been there before. They're not alone. They can come and get encouragement and advice and resources. And so I think our parents are just critical and have such an impactful influence. And also our members also find them wonderful, you know, surrogate families for those NHPI folk, LGBTQ plus folks who maybe are not accepted by their families, or they're too scared to share their identities with their families. You know, they can come and get support from all of us. And you know, the research is very clear that having even just one supportive adult in the life of an LGBTQ plus young person just makes a significant difference in terms of reducing harmful behaviors. And I didn't mention that our members represent 7 decades. So we have young folks in their 20s, we have some of our founding elders in their 80s, and everybody in between. So we really are like an intergenerational family. And lastly, I'll just say that when our PFLAG parents are out at public-facing events, they are just rock stars of representation. And one of our founding elders, John, is in his 70s. And he goes every single year to Long Beach, Los Angeles, and WeHo Pride and marches in the parade with a huge sign that says, "I love my gay son." And he's Korean American, and folks will literally run into the street to hug him and to take pictures with him. And I'm getting emotional, but you know, being loud and proud out in the community, it gives such hope to other API parents who might be struggling. Sorry. Yeah. And other, you know, LGBTQ plus folks who want to be their authentic selves with their families. And so, you know, that it's so amazing to see their faces just light up when they see us coming. And that happened all along the route of the Golden Dragon Parade this year, and some of the folks here were marching with us, and we were especially privileged to be carrying the beautiful transgender colored dragon from VROC. Thank you so much. But you know, visibility is everything, and that's what our parents provide.
Thank you so much. And the perfect tee up for Jeff, because we were at the Golden Dragon Parade together, and you and your partner exuded joy. And so that's what I'm going to ask you about. Jeff, can you share about Queer Joy Coalition and why we need spaces like this now?
Just real quick, I just want to talk about PFLAG, because I just learned about PFLAG SGV API in August when we did I think we did a press briefing through API Coalition. And I told Stasia that if I had parents like you guys or my parents had tools and an area to go to learn about things, my coming out would have been so much easier. Because I came out and I moved to California, I was like, I'm gonna get out of here, I can't stay in Chicago. And I just think the culture piece to being LGBTQ plus is so important, because there's things that are just not applicable to like the standard American way of living, especially if you're like first generation in the States. And just to see these parents fight so fiercely for their children, I wish I had that when I came out at 22 to my parents, because it's so hard to like know what we lost or know what I had to go through on my own, right? So I say I'm making up for lost time with the work now. Sorry, jeez. I will say for AAPI Queer Joy Coalition, like I mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that so I think we in this room would love the fact that California as a blue state is a refuge compared to the other states in the US for LGBTQ plus folks. But in order for us to keep it that way, we gotta show the assembly members, the senators, that LGBTQ plus folks will show up and advocate, will show up and speak to causes and share their stories. They need to know that when they run bills or have policies that they're authoring or creating, that they're gonna benefit people and that they serve in their districts or in the state. So without us showing up to lobby days like me and Wynn did on Wednesday for Club California, without sending support letters and opposition letters to anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ plus bills, we cannot be seen. Again, to Viki's point about visibility, if they don't see us, they don't hear us, they will not fight for us, they will not understand why they need to care about us. So AAPI Queer Joy allows a lot of these organizations like VROC who have done local community organizing to engage in a new level of advocacy, which is at the state level. And it's hard because I think for me, like just as full transparency, like my work is general operating money at AJ SoCal. We haven't even had a chance to make a case for funders to support this work. So when I ask for VROC to have capacity to do these things, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for them to like plug and play. Like monthly meetings, like hey, support letter, just template here, everything, right? Because I'm like, I cannot ask a partner who's already at capacity to do extra. That's not like, again, it's around like community care and limits and boundaries. So I am shouldering a lot of the work because I'm like, I know I can do this. I know I have these infrastructure at AJ SoCal and my policy team to do this work, to do this for them. But it's also kind of proving to the partners too, like, hey, there's benefits here to engaging in this level. And I hope they don't see that as just more work. I hope they see it as, okay, actually there's benefits. And honestly, again, I mean, not to like gaslight up the whole panel, but like,
It's getting uncomfortable.
well, like, Win is like the biggest champion as a founding member of the coalition with me. I think just it's never hard to ask VROC or Win to participate or to engage, and I'm always so thankful that I can always lean on Win to like have my back and show up to the meetings, especially in Orange County,
Yes.
repping for Orange County in that way, and I'm just very thankful that I see more partners coming, engaging, and wanting to do lobby days and stretch themselves and. I just appreciate it, but it's important again because it's like if we want the state to remain blue, to remain safe for LGBTQ plus folks, we have to show up at that level of advocacy as well. And if we don't, they'll just throw us aside. And fighting for visibility, using our voices is just so key to making sure that we keep the state safe for LGBT plus folks of all backgrounds, especially for our APEC community.
Thank you. But I say a lot, if you can't see it, you can't be it, right? So representation is really important. Next question is for Uyen and Hieu. Can you talk about VROC and how the landscape in Orange County looks for your organization? And you've already kind of mentioned that, but maybe you can give us some more context and how we can change the direction of the future.
I want to pass the appreciation from Jeff to me back to Hieu, because I would not be the organizer I am if I did not learn from this guy next to me, and because
The bad and the good.
yeah, we're complex. And since it's a two-part question, I'm going to ask you to do the history, and I can do the second part. Okay.
I shared a little bit earlier, we started in 2013, right? And that was when even in Orange County, I mean, the only organization was the LGBTQ Center. And 2010, I started a mental health program specifically for LGBTQ folks in Orange County as a clinician. I'm a social worker, licensed clinical social worker. And I remember the Board of Supervisor at the time asked us to change the name from OK to Be Me because it was hinting at recruitment, right? Like we were recruiting LGBTQ folks. And so I had to change the name to OC Accept, which stands for Orange County Acceptance Through Compassionate Care, Empowerment, and Positive Transformation. A mouthful. And then, I was sitting in my desk at the time under the fluorescent lighting at the county. You work at the county, white walls. We got a call. I got a call from a friend of mine he submitted the application to march in the Lunar New Year parade in Little Saigon on Bolsa Avenue. We've had that parade for about, at that point, 35 plus years. And the parade organizer, his name is Fat Boy, he was one of the parade organizer. He's actually running in my race. I'm running against him in my race as well. Kind of rejected the application and said we're not gonna allow you to march, et cetera, because this is an illness that exists in the Vietnamese culture. Your parent didn't teach you right, didn't raise you right. yeah, my house became an organizing hub. The same small living room that I still live in right now, an organizing hub. And we organized for 2 years, right? The first year we couldn't march, but we filed an injunction against the parade. I couldn't call it a protest back then because they're like, you can't protest against your community. So I had to call it a demonstration. So we demonstrated as they were marching in the parade. But we got organized and we formed VROC. From the first year to the second year, we formed VROC as a 501c3. VROC remains the only 501c3 Vietnamese American LGBTQ org in the country.
Yes.
And so, you verified that?
I'm saying period.
Okay,
Yes.
period.
That's the status.
Yeah, that's the status.
Everyone else is physically sponsored.
Yeah, yes. And so, and I think that the landscape has changed a lot in the last 12 years in terms of acceptance within the Vietnamese American community. And that was intentional on our part. We spent the 2 years telling our stories, putting a face to the LGBTQ story, right? We went on TV, radio station, newspaper. I kept dragging on the negotiation with the parade organizer because I wanted to tell our stories, right? And our goal was to change hearts before minds at the time. And so we were in everybody's faces and radios and TVs. And I think that helped a lot in terms of changing the narrative. And they even have language now to talk about LGBTQ folks in the newspaper, right? We were very intentional about teaching, them what LGBTQ was translated to. And so a lot has changed, but a lot has not changed. And I think that's where, Uyen, I'll pass it to you.
I feel like you're underselling yourself, but that's okay. You did a lot.
What am I underselling? Tell them.
The thingy, protest, going against the sponsors. That's a good tactic. That's a good
So we negotiated, and they actually, the second year, they publicly voted to not include us. There was a vote in their organizing committee to include or not include LGBTQ organization, and they voted no, right? And somebody posted on social media, and we got a hold of it. And by the second year, we were very organized already, so we went for it. But anyways, the negotiation took about 3 months, and they kept saying you can't march without the flags, the rainbow flags. And I was like, well, if you're holding the American flag and the South Vietnamese flag, we're holding the rainbow flag, right? There's no negotiation on that. And they're like, well, you have to march in the back of the parade. I'm like, we're not marching in the back of the parade.
I know that's right.
You will have a public drawing of the numbers of the orders of the parade, but we're not doing that. And they won't budge. And I was like, okay, we're done negotiating. And we contacted all of the mainstream sponsors at the time, and they lost $80,000 of sponsorship. And that was the cost of the parade, right, to organize the parade. And we also negotiated, so because of that, they had a second vote to allow us to march in the parade. And then, and they were still headstrong about us marching last and all of this. And then we met with the police union, the chief of police of the city of Westminster, and I brought out a 3D collage of how we were gonna march, right? Uyen's face was in that collage, my face was in the collage. We showed them how we were gonna march, and I said, look, we are prepared to go into civil disobedience, right? If anyone tries to take the rainbow flag away from us. And so I talked to the police chief and I said, what is the procedure? What is the process? And he's like, well, we're gonna warn you, give you some verbal warning. I said, in what language? He's like, in English. I said, can you do Spanish? He's like, yes. Can you do Vietnamese? He said, yes. And I said, okay, do all three languages. And he was like, why? I said, because I want the media to come and take pictures of you taking away young Vietnamese American LGBTQ folks with the rainbow flag. And you will be on the front page. Right? Because by this time, LA Times was following us for about 3 months or so, and then New York Times started following us, right? And so the police chief was like, don't worry about it, we'll handle the parade organizer, you all march, y'all be yourself, right? But they followed us to make sure that we were safe as we were carrying the flags. Mm-hmm. We had to have, when we were marching, everybody was wearing a bandana, a thing around a rainbow thing around their arms, because we wanted to make sure that they were people from our contingent, just to be prepared that folks were going to come in and try to stir up things. Yeah, so.
Good job. Wayne, would you mind if we move down to maybe we have a little space for one question or two questions?
I'm okay with not talking, that's okay. See, look at this guy, he's so good. You never expect that from Orange County, right?
First of all, I just want to thank you all for this amazing conversation and the work that you're doing in your respective spheres. And I love that we are gelling as a coalition and as a family. So thank you so much for being here today. If folks want to give it up to our panel? I think we have time for like maybe one or two questions, quick questions. Folks have questions for our panelists? Don't be shy, Asians.
Define the stereotype.
My question is, how are you seeking joy in your life right now?
Oh.
It's not hard to answer.
I watch a lot of reality TV shows. The Secret Wives, Lives of Mormon Wives, I just started. Because I watched The Bachelorette. That's where's my Bachelorette? I guess I gotta watch these. I have a dog. I think like, I have been an organizer since I was a college student, and I had to unlearn a lot of things. And some of that is taking things slow, so learning to have hobbies, and also trying to figure out my future life. Because I think when you're organizing, you're like, what does the future hold? I don't know.
Yeah.
So me and my partner are either family planning or wedding planning. We don't know which one's coming first.
Both.
We will take money for folks who will want us to have that at the same time. We work in nonprofit, and so we get both of us, and we can only do one at a time. So finding joy in like believing that the future is possible, even though every day feels very rough.
Okay, I can go next. I think joy for me is varied. I have a good amount of hobbies. I would say I play a lot of tennis. I also watch a lot of Housewives. Potomac, and I'm not sure about this next season. I have 2 dogs by proxy. My partner has a really cute dog named Emery, who's kind of like, I think, kind of guards me as his owner. And then also my housemate has a dog named Archie. I like to laugh, so me and my partner laugh a lot, just tell dumb jokes. Me and Leanna laugh a lot, like my coworker over here. I think I try to be community spaces where it's not anything at stake, right? It's just, hey, come out, hang out, eat, laugh. So I'll say those things too, and I will say that I've listened to a lot of Zara Larsson lately.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of Stateside, a lot of Midnight Sun. So I'll say I find joy in music. The people around me who I really love, like my partner, my community, and just good food and good music. So those things.
And just so we all know, who's your boo? Who's your boo?
It's pretty new though.
Why am I on?
You wanna say hi?
Hello.
He's loving you up over there. Recording you. No, you too.
But I'll say those things, and I do love learning a lot from the elders. I think, and I say that respectfully. I know that I'm very lucky to be in this position. So there's a lot. I think joy for me is also gratitude, of like what I get to add on to, what I get to build on, whether that's like in my own community, like Marshall Wong, or Jerry Candelario, or if that's Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera. So I just think I'm always reminded of like, I feel like I'm walking in a part of my path that's meant for me. So I find joy in that too.
Viki and Hieu, can you do joy in 2 minutes?
I triple down on the dog. Mine's the queen of everything. And I will also acknowledge eating is a joy for me, to be honest with you. So I really love being in community with these folks, especially when it's over a meal. All of our PFLAG support meetings, of course, feature delicious Asian food. So I would say that's my main source of joy is really community and breaking bread.
Yes.
I'll keep it short because I was long-winded. Joy for me right now is like my baby. You know, he's 2 years old and he is growing and he calls me Papa, and that's all I need. That's joy for me.
Nice. What
Thank
about you, Eric?
so much.
Yeah, Eric, how about you?
Oh man, we don't have time for me. But thank you for that question, and I love that we ended on joy because that's what this is all about, right? And that's what's gonna get us through this. So thank you.
Woo!